The last dynasty of Imperial China was the Qing dynasty, which was a regime founded in northeastern China by the Manchurian leader Nohachi. A nomadic tribe in its origin, the Manchu race nonetheless was closer to Han culture than the Mongolians who founded the Yuan dynasty. When the Qing government entered into the Han region of China in 1644, the regime would inherit the Ming system of Confucian bureaucracy while reserving the top positions of government for the Manchurian noblemen. There was a desire to create an integrated empire, but simultaneously also maintaining the tradition of princes evolving in military affairs. It meant that there were bitter rivalries in the succession process in the Qing regime. From the death of Nohachi in 1626 to the assumption of the throne by Emperor Yongzheng in 1722, every succession involved some form of bloody court rivalry, apart from the one where Emperor Kangxi assumed the throne when he was 8 in 1661. One could draw similarities between early Qing with the early Tang, where the regime was run with a keen desire to follow Zhou principles of order while maintaining elements of a competitive nomadic structure. Just like the Tang dynasty earlier, early Qing was one of the most expensive and successful empires that Chinese history had ever seen. Again, there was a negative relationship between order in court and territorial expansion of a regime. The Emperor Yongzheng, who reigned from 1722 to 1735 AD, having experienced one of the most bitter court rivalries, eventually created a secretive succession system, Mimi Lichu, which blended the Zhou succession system with competition training. The emperor would, towards the end of his life, write down the name of his chosen heir and put the document behind the plaque hanging from the ceiling in Qianqing Palace in the Forbidden City. When the emperor died, a eunuch would take the document and read out the name of the heir for all to know. The purpose of the system was to balance between competition and harmony. A strict Zhou succession system lacked meritocracy and training for the future leaders. With competition, the chance of family rivalry was high. That way, the princes could compete, and this way of the secretive succession system would allow the princes to compete under the supervision of the father. When the father dies, the heir would assume absolute power, and so all the previous competition would have to cease. The system seemed to work as the succession process for the next few generations were smooth, and a competitive process allowed the future emperors to have experience in government. After the death of Xianfeng Emperor in 1861, the Qing emperors who assumed the throne were all infants and were childless until their deaths. The system was therefore rendered useless. Since the Qing dynasty was the last dynasty in Chinese history, one would not be able to observe if this system could stand the test of time. So the plan of the series. The plan of the series is to delve into some of the most dramatic cases of royal household rivalry that could shed light for family business owner on how to structure his organization's succession for both peace and growth. 9 cases have been extracted based on their historical significance as well as the education value. And these are the following 9 cases where we'll be talking about. The first case, case 1. The topic will be on how the first Emperor Qin Shi Huang's will to eradicate any inner threat to his empire partially led to its downfall. The dynasty involved was Qin, and the period was from around 250 BC to 210 BC. Then case 2. The topic is how the first emperor of the Han dynasty, Liu Wang, left seeds of disaster for his most loved ones by mishandling his succession selection process. dynasty was Han, and the period was from around 210 BC to 180 BC. Case 3. The case is how the effective founder of the Wei regime, Cao Cao, endangers his regime by inhibiting challenges to his own power. In the dynasty, the period is the Three Kingdoms, and the period is from around 190 AD to 220 AD. The fourth case. The topic is how the first emperor of the Tang dynasty, Li Yuan, failed to contain his son's rivalries while trying to maintain the Zhou succession system. The dynasty is Tang dynasty, and the period is from around 620 AD to 630 AD. Case 5. The topic is how the only female emperor, Wu Zetian, faced the dilemma of choosing between her children and her nephews for her maiden name to be her successor. Dynasty is the Tang dynasty, and the period is around 640 AD to 700 AD. Case 6. The topic is how the Emperor Tang Xuanzong, Li Longji, would utilize the chaotic royal family situation to rise to the apex of power. The dynasty is Tang dynasty, and the period we're looking at is from 710 AD to 715 AD. Case 7. Topic is how the Emperor Huang Taiji rose from a weak position to becoming the absolute ruler of the Qing regime. The period is early Qing dynasty, and the period is from around 1630 to 1650 AD. Case 8. The topic is how the Emperor Kangxi was unsuccessful in balancing the Zhou succession system with his desire to have many of his sons involved in government. The dynasty is the Qing dynasty, and the period is from around 1680 AD to 1740 AD. Case 9. The topic is how the Emperor Xianfeng tried and failed to engineer a political structure that was at odds with the Qing regime's natural order of power distribution. The dynasty was the Qing dynasty, and the period is from around 1840 AD to 1860 AD. So starting from the next recording, we'll begin with our first case on Qin Shi Huang.